Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on this channel, Transformers Rise of Unicron, and finally with new side content again during the updates and the live Q&As. Now, you'll probably look at this video and you'll be like, whoa, what happened to the quality? Why is it so good all of a sudden? Well, finally, if you've seen the last live Q&A, you know I've got the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. I got it. I actually got it way faster than I thought. It's here now. It's filming right now. And for those who don't know, this is the camera that we'll be filming our movie Transformers Rise of Unicron with as well. So yes, that is the quality that you can expect for this fan project. But today we're not going to talk about Transformers Rise of Unicron. Today we're going to do another movie review. So yesterday I actually watched another horror movie again. If you know me, I'm a big horror enthusiast. I love watching horror movies in my free time. And what movie did I watch? Well, it's a pretty recent movie actually. And it's called The Taking of Deborah Logan. And The Taking of Deborah Logan, to really summarize the plot without any spoilers, is about a crew of students who wants to film a documentary on Alzheimer's, or people who are suffering from Alzheimer's, and how the illness progresses over time. And they make a deal with a family, with the Logan family. And after they made the deal, they drive up to the home of Deborah Logan, and her daughter is also here caring for her because she was recently diagnosed with the beginning stages of the Alzheimer's disease. And they decide to follow with her and document how the illness progresses and how it progresses from day to day. And while they are there, they notice that the symptoms and the illness in general is very aggressive and starts getting worse and worse very quickly in the span of a few days. But weirdly enough, the symptoms that Deborah shows are not common for Alzheimer's at all, and doctors don't know what that is, and she displays very creepy and eerie behavior and starts also to get very aggressive towards one of the crew members, who actually on multiple occasions says, "I'm done, I don't want anything to do this creeps me the hell out, something's wrong here." And let's just say they should have heeded his advice, because as the days start to pass on after that, they notice that there is something way more sinister behind Deborah's illness. So yeah, that is the plot of The Taking of Deborah Logan, very summarized and of course spoiler free. And I have to say the movie has quite a few strong points, and one of them is the premise. I think I've never seen a movie which combines Alzheimer's with otherworldly horror aspects, and that was interesting to see. And also the actors in this movie do a really good job. I think I told you guys when I first made my review on Gonjan or on Grave Encounters, I always say, especially with found footage movies, which by the way this movie is, it is so important that the actors are good. If the actors aren't good in this movie and their performance aren't believable, the whole movie falls apart, no matter how awesome your story is, how creepy the scenes are. If the actors can't make it look real or seem real, there's no effect, there's no horror effect behind it. And the actors doing a really good job here in The Taking of Deborah Logan. So that is also good. And there's another thing which you actually don't see often in found footage movies, which I really appreciated. And that is Adam Robital's cinematography and also his directing. He's, by the way, the director of this movie. And there are some really nice looking shots in here. And in general, the quality of the video is really good. And that is something that you can't take for granted with found footage movies actually. I mean, for example, if you look at, the classic example here is the Blair Witch Project. If you talk about found footage, you kind of need to talk about the Blair Witch Project, as it's one of the most influential found footage movies there is. People literally thought it's real when it came out. And when you look at the quality in that movie and compare it to this one, I know the comparison is a bit off since it's a movie from 1999, but even if you look at movies of 2005, the beginnings of the 2000s, and also 2010, 11, found footage movies also all, I think the directors and everyone that was making them thought, if you make it the quality grainy and less good and professional, it's more believable, and I kind of understand the approach. But looking at this movie now, and especially with the advent of everyone having access to amazing quality cameras through their smartphones, it makes sense that found footage movies also are sharp and don't need to be grainy and always with these flickers in between the videos, like it's a bad feed or something, you know what I mean? And the other thing is actually the overall concept of the movie helps to make this cinematography possible, because essentially the plot is that they want to make a documentary, so it makes sense that they have better cameras than your average smartphone camera, and it makes sense that you have these nice time-lapse shots of the house. And so that is really nice, and I really appreciated that in that movie, because not a lot of found footage movies actually have good cinematography and directing behind them. Yeah, that's where it kind of ends though, with the positives, because as soon as this movie starts to be what it set out to be, and that is a horror movie, it kind of fails. It isn't because the horror sequences or the ideas that they're trying to pull off are bad. They aren't bad. They're just nothing new. And I know, stop me if you heard this before, but I've said this quite a few times now when reviewing newer horror movies, but this movie falls in the same trap again. But this one does it to an extent that is really interesting. I think it's a perfect example of what is wrong today with found footage movies or horror in general. If you've seen a lot of horror movies, if you're also a horror enthusiast like I am, and you've seen a lot of them, like the classics, and you know the stereotypes, and you know the classical stereotypes that horror movies have, and the tells that the jump scares normally have, that a lot of directors use these days, I tell you, you will be hard-pressed to find any moment in the Taking of Deborah Logan that will surprise you, or like a jump scare that'll work and actually surprise you. There is not a lot. I think there was one jump scare, I'll be honest, I think there was one that actually got me. It got me for a second, I twitched. But apart from that, like every other scary moment has a massive tell behind it. Like as soon as a sequence starts, like that's supposed to be scary, I can tell it's happening. You know what I mean? It's not subversive. It's not indirect. It's not like hidden. It's not like this underlying horror feeling. It's not building up atmosphere. Because every time they try to pull off something horrifying, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I've seen this before, and I'm thinking of the movie that I've seen it in, and I completely get pulled out of the moment and the story. And that's why the horror fails. Don't get me wrong. It's not because it's badly executed. Again, it looks good. It's executed well, but it's nothing new. Also in the way it's shot. I told you cinematography and the directing is great. Yes, it is. But the way everything is shot, and also up to how the ideas are played out, is textbook how it always is in these horror movies. You know, you have the scene where one of the protagonists goes in the room. It's an eerie ass room, of course, by the way, with creaking doors, and it's an old house because, of course. And he goes in the room, and you know, he's looking at things, and you're like, okay, there are two ways this is happening now. Either under one of these blankets, a ghost is jumping out, or something is jumping out, or he turns around and then there is someone. Guess what? He turns around, there is someone, you know? There's a saying, well, the most scary thing is the fright from the unknown. You know, if I cannot expect it, if I cannot anticipate the scare, it's way more scary because I have no idea what's happening, and I'm in the moment. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this before, this is interesting. And when it happens and it actually surprises me, then I'll jump, you know, I'll actually be frightened for a second. And I think a lot of people get this wrong. A lot of people these days, and Hollywood as well, thinks the scary part of a sequence is when the jump scare happens. In my opinion, the way more scarier thing is when it builds up, you know. Perfect example, Gone Jump, you know, if you've seen my review on it, it's probably the biggest surprise in terms of a horror indie project that I've seen in the last years. I'm not exaggerating. It actually frightened me, which not a lot of new movies do these days, sadly. It's, by the way, also found footage movie, so this example works perfectly. The scary thing is the build-up, in my opinion, when it builds up the atmosphere. And you know something will happen. You know it because you know the stereotypes. But the movie's playing with it, and it's like, you think something's happening, but it's not happening. I'll keep teasing you. Because as it's playing with your expectations, it makes you unsure. You're like, oh, is this not happening? Oh, I don't know when the jump scare will happen. And then when it hits, it actually gets you. And that's the thing. I think the build-up is what makes it scary. The atmosphere that the movie creates, that's what's really scary and what should be scary and frightening. Not the jump scare. Because let's face it, the thing that is scaring you with a jump scare, maybe the face, that's maybe 10-15%, but 75% is just the loud noise that scares you. And that's not what makes a horror movie, even though a lot of people think that, and Hollywood wants you to believe that. It's just a cheap way of just making you jump for a sec, you know? But the real horror, the really good horror movies are the ones that stick with you after you've watched it. You're like, oh damn, that was a good movie, damn, that really creeped me out, you know what I mean? That those movies where you're at the edge of your seat and you're like, I cannot watch that, you know, those are the movies. And the problem with The Taking of Deborah Logan is it just doesn't do that, because it's just so not innovative with its jump scares and its sequences. Like, I tell you, there is not one horror idea in this movie that I have not seen. And also the final sequence in this movie is almost literally beat by beat the Blair Witch Project final. So if you've seen that really, trust me, when you watch this movie, it will remind you of that. It's really, also the way it's playing out is pretty similar to the Blair Witch Project. So that was actually quite interesting, and is a good example for how much this movie is borrowing from other classics of the found footage genre. And because of that, I just cannot get invested in it. And the problem is, when a found footage movie can't make the horror work, it falls apart. And that is so unfortunate with this movie. I think the best word to describe how I felt after watching The Taking of Deborah Logan is, I was disappointed. Because I know Manfred told me about this movie, he showed me the reviews on IMDb, you know. I was looking at it, oh, they actually pretty good ratings for a found footage movie, you know. And I actually expected something, and then I saw the premise, I saw the quality of cinematography, and I was like, this could be something, you know? And again, the first minutes and the first intrigue of this movie is pretty good. And then it just, you know, as soon as the horror hits, you're like, okay, this is a run-of-the-mill horror movie. And it just, you know, it's unfortunate. They could have done so much more with it. And it's just sad, because you see this potential, and it's just wasted in front of your eyes, and you're like, damn it. So yeah, that is why The Taking of Deborah Logan will get a 3 out of 10 from me. And I know you'll probably be like, damn, 3 out of 10? That didn't sound that bad. And you know, the thing is, I'll say it this way. If you're a guy that didn't watch a lot of horror movies yet, let's say you just got into it, you like it, you know, you don't know a lot of stereotypes yet, you haven't watched a lot of the classics yet. If you're that kind of person, then I think you will have a good time with this movie. But if you're a person like me, a horror enthusiast, you've seen a lot of the classics, you know the stereotypes, like newer horror movies bore you, and you're often just disappointed when watching them because they're doing nothing new, they're just recycling his stereotypes, and they're just not daring to do anything innovative or new anymore. If you're that kind of guy, then you'll watch The Taking of Deborah Logan and you'll be bored, because there's nothing really new or interesting there. And that is unfortunate. So yeah guys, that is my review of The Taking of Deborah Logan. What is your opinion? Have you seen this movie? Just tell me in the comments below. And also, have you seen a found footage movie recently that you really liked, that really deeply scared you? Because I think a lot of people that are watching this movie, including me, want to finally see a good found footage movie again. So yeah guys, that is this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Till the next one.